Hello everybody, today I'm very excited to welcome the Marine Conservation Manager of the 2020 World's Best Scuba Diving Center, Scuba Junkie. Congratulations and hello David McCann.
Thank you. Hello everyone. Hello Julia.
I have to say I'm very proud to have started my journey in diving with Melly Pack from Scuba Junkie. Hello Mel, if you're watching, you better be. So when and why did Scuba Junkie SEAS start?
So Scuba Junkie, the dive center, started back in 2004 in Semporna. It started very small, and it was started by two gentlemen who were very passionate about doing things properly and about giving back to the marine environment and also the communities who rely on it. So first and foremost, they had to establish a successful business. And so within 5 years, they were in a position then that they were able to use some of their profits to fund these programs. So Scuba Junkie SEAS, the dedicated conservation arm of the dive center, officially started in 2009.
You did an online presentation at my school talking about Scuba Junkie and its tireless efforts to becoming a more sustainable resort. You talked about the coral conservation, shark and turtle conservation, tackling marine debris, eco-friendly resort, and your outreach. Which do you think is the most important topic and why?
Well, that's a very difficult question. I mean, I think first and foremost, it's really, really important to ensure that your operations are not having a big impact on the ocean. So starting with the eco-friendly resort is key. You know, it's obviously nice to do these other projects and give back, but if you are having a direct impact on the marine environment through your resort and diving practices, it kind of negates the good work that you're doing. So definitely first and foremost, you need to focus on the resort and minimize the environmental footprint.
Your dive operator is proud, and rightly so, to have some extremely eco-friendly resorts. Is it hard to become environmentally friendly like Scuba Junkie, or is it just a matter of habits?
Yeah, it's just about starting that journey. I mean, none of us are perfect. We're not perfect either. I think it's pretty much impossible to be. You know, it's just about starting on that journey, choosing the simple things to do, changing your behaviors, getting rid of single-use plastics, trying to reduce your use of energy and so on, reducing food waste, simple things like that, and then working on to slightly more challenging things. So like, for example, installing renewable energies.
What is the hardest part? Is it raising funds or transporting the appliances since you're on an island, or getting people on board?
I mean, the challenges are things to overcome. They're not things that should put you off doing what it is that needs to be done. So you have highlighted some of the challenges that we face. Obviously, being based on a remote island location, getting access to some of the equipment and so on that we need is challenging. From the resort's perspective, getting access to power, dealing with sewage, getting fresh water, these are all challenges that we have to overcome. In terms of funding, like you've mentioned already, I'm very fortunate to work for a very supportive dive center, and the two owners are willing to put their money where their mouth is. So actually a lot of the conservation work and community work that we do is directly funded by the company.
You also have a no seafood policy, and I've always heard that it's okay to eat fish as long as it's being sustainably caught. Do you know how the consumer can know if it was sustainably caught?
Yeah, I wish the answer to that was a simple question, or simple as well. It's just asking questions and trying to take out steps along the way. So the fewer hands I think the seafood passes through, the easier it is to determine where it came from and how it was caught. So certainly trying to go to the source. And like you say, we have no issue with people eating seafood. It's not a problem. Of course, people enjoy eating seafood. The problem for us is just simply we cannot ensure that all of the seafood in our area would be sustainably sourced, and that's the reason why we don't provide it within the resort. But certainly from an individual perspective, there is no problem eating seafood so long as you make the right decisions. If you're buying seafood that's frozen or from a refrigerator in a large supermarket, you can actually look, there's little logos. So there's the Marine Stewardship Council and there's the Aquaculture Stewardship Council, and they assess wild caught fisheries and farmed like aquaculture, and if they deem to be sustainable, they'll give the little stamp of approval. So that's something you could look out for in the supermarket. You could also go to WWF Malaysia's website. They actually have a sustainable seafood guide for Malaysia that works on a traffic light system of red, yellow, green. And so the simplest way of describing it is if it's red, you should avoid eating it. If it's yellow, maybe start thinking about eating less of it. And if it's green, you can eat it guilt-free.
I'll look out for that. That's interesting. It's a good way to know which is good and which is bad. I'll definitely look out for that. Turtle conservation is one of the main areas of your work. You have a turtle hatchery where over 16,000 baby turtles were released. And actually, people can virtually witness it via your live streams on Facebook. How do you find the best?
So this is actually a good example of where we took the time to understand the location and the challenges and come up with a solution that we thought would work very well. Because what we found before we had the turtle hatchery program was that people on the island would eat turtle eggs. And when you question why, well, it's simple. People need to feed their families. And when a green turtle comes up and lays 100 eggs, that's quite a lot of food. But in Sabah, we're lucky because turtles are completely protected by law. But the challenge is that turtles nest on remote islands in the middle of the night. So the chances of getting caught are very slim. So what we decided to do was create a situation where turtle conservation was more important to the local community than turtle egg consumption. And so how it works is we implemented a reward system. So if you come and tell us that there's a turtle nesting, and our trained honorary wildlife wardens, who are authorized by the government to do turtle conservation efforts, they will then go manage the nesting and make sure that the female turtle does not get disturbed. And once she's finished and returned to the ocean, our honorary wildlife wardens will carefully relocate the nest to the safety of our hatchery. And to say thank you to the community for their contribution of telling us that there was a nesting turtle, we give them a 1,000 ringgit reward. In a lot of locations, you would have a bit of conflict between communities and conservation, but actually on Mabul, we've created a situation where we can work together. And it works very well.
Where do you find the money to give the reward of 1,000 ringgit?
So what we decided was that we would try to make the turtle hatchery program self-sustaining. So rather than using the money from the company, we would make it pay for itself so that we could then use the money from the company to start more projects. And so now the money for that actually comes from an adoption initiative, whereby guests to the Mabul Beach Resort can actually adopt one of the baby turtles. They get to name it, and we make a little certificate up with details of the nest that it came from, and put the name on the certificate. We also, you get a turtle hatchery t-shirt, like the one that I'm wearing today, and the costs of the t-shirts are paid for by the company. So effectively, 100% of the 100 ringgit donation made by a guest is used towards paying the next community reward. So we need 10 adoptions to cover each nest. And it does work very well. And Scuba Junkie cover whatever is needed.
I need to adopt more turtles because I actually adopted 2 turtles and 1 shark. The shark was from something different. But I have my little animals in the wild. You also have a turtle rehabilitation center collaborated with the Marine Research Foundation. What are the most common injuries you see?
So our rehabilitation center opened back in 2015, and we've seen quite a lot of different injuries and illnesses over the time we've had the rehab center. Floating syndrome would be quite a common one. So floating syndrome is basically where the turtle has gas buildup inside its shell. And this causes the turtle, like a fully inflated BCD. I know you're a diver, so this is a good way to think about it. If you fully inflate your BCD, you're stuck on the surface. No matter how hard you try to go down, it's not going to happen. And so this is the problem that the turtles face as well. They get stuck on the surface, which means they're at high risk of collision with boats. They can't get away from the sun, so it's very hard for them to regulate their temperature. And obviously they can't feed either when they're stuck on the surface. There's kind of two reasons that they get floating syndrome. One of them is that they have an intestinal infection, and that infection is producing a lot of gas, which gets stuck inside. The other main cause would be eating plastics. And so when they eat plastics, it causes a blockage, and then gas builds up behind the blockage, and they float to the surface. So floating syndrome would be the most common, but we've also seen turtles that have been stuck inside ghost nets and have actually lost flippers because they've been stuck inside the ghost nets. We've seen boat strike injuries. We've seen blunt force trauma, so where the turtle has been hit on the skull. So a whole array of different injuries and illnesses. Yeah, but over the 5 years we've had the program, we've successfully rehabilitated 15 turtles and released them back to the wild again. So it's very nice.
How many turtles are you able to have at once in the rehabilitation center?
So with turtles, you shouldn't have more than one in a tank, because if they have a disease or bacteria, something like that, that could transfer from one turtle to another.
Yeah.
But the problem was we had a turtle in the rehab center, and then we got a second turtle. So we had to come up with a solution. How are we going to take care of this turtle when we can't put it in with the other one? So actually what we did is, in the resort, they have rainwater harvesting systems.
Yeah.
And we had a couple of old rainwater harvesting tanks in the back of the resort. So we were actually able to take those and cut the top of them off and create little holding tanks. So now actually we're in a position where we can have 3 turtles at the same time.
Has there been any time when you've had the same turtle twice? Are you able to recognize if you find a turtle twice?
So we haven't had any of our released turtles come back into the rehab center before, but we have encountered some of the turtles while diving around Mabul and yeah, because some of them have really unique injuries. So it's very obvious when you see them again. You actually don't, in some cases, even need to check the tag number or take the photo ID again. But also working in collaboration with the Marine Research Foundation, we've actually satellite tagged a few of the turtles that we've released. So this actually allows us to monitor their movements after they've been released back into the wild. It's actually very interesting. So you use marine epoxy to put a little satellite tag on the carapace on the back of the turtle, and it's got a little aerial coming up. So every time the turtle comes up to breathe, the aerial comes out of the water and sends a signal up to the satellite. So basically what you do is you log into the website, you put in your passwords, and then it actually shows you the movement of the turtle every time it's come up for a breath.
Oh.
So very useful monitoring their movements after reintroduction back to the wild.
You also do some shark and ray conservation, where you do a lot of research and collect data to facilitate this process. How do you gather the data, and what do you do with it?
So, you know, every diver likes to keep a record of what they see when they go diving. So one of the things we like to do actually is to try and collect as much of that data as we can. So for places like, for example, at Scuba Island, we have an ongoing logbook that lasts for more than 10 years. So this helps us to sort of keep an eye on what's going on with populations and trends with the different species of sharks and rays and turtles that we encounter. But as well as that, we also work with, as part of the Saba Shark and Ray initiative. So the Saba Shark and Ray initiative is a collaboration of organizations working together to try and better understand the shark and ray populations that we have, and hopefully try and improve their management and conservation. So we work with organizations like the Marine Research Foundation, WWF Malaysia, LEAP, and who am I missing? The Saba Shark Protection Association as well. But I think collaboration is really, really important.
Yeah.
We firmly believe in the power of collaboration, that together we are stronger. To give you an example, have you heard of Crown of Thorns sea stars?
Yes. They're big troublemakers.
Well, normally not. Normally, actually, they're very important. On a very, very healthy, balanced reef, they actually help to promote hard coral diversity, because they have a preference for the faster growing hard coral species. So by eating the faster growing hard coral species, they open up space for the slower growing species. The problem is, when we take the ocean out of balance, that then you get an explosion in their numbers, and then they don't have a preference anymore. They just eat all of the corals. Yeah. And so we had an outbreak on Mabul back at the end of 2018, and we wouldn't have been able to tackle this problem by ourselves. When you went diving, they were literally everywhere. I've never seen anything like this before. I was absolutely shocked when we went down. You could stay in one spot and look around, and you'd easily count 100 of them. So we actually notified the government about this problem, and the government very quickly then contacted lots of dive operators and said, look guys, can you please work with Scuba Junkie SEAS and work as a team to try and tackle this problem? And actually, in the space of 10 days, we removed more than 8,000 Crown of Thorns sea stars just from a small section of reef, you know. And without working together, I mean, we wouldn't have been able to solve that problem.
Scuba Junkie also promotes and celebrates a lot of dedicated weeks to specific animal conservations like sharks and rays, turtles, whale sharks, etc. Why did you start these celebrations?
Oh, well, actually, if we go right back to the start, the first one was actually Shark Week back in 2014. And it actually started because I was watching a little bit of television, and I put on the Discovery Channel, and it was their Shark Week. And their Shark Week actually annoys me a little bit. I think it's very dramatized, and it's not actually very good for sharks. You know, they have the man-eating shark versus killer crocodile. Oh. And I think the problem that sharks face is that there is a lot of negative publicity. Yeah. And a lot of people, they're just really misunderstood. People don't understand actually how important these animals are for the marine environment, and actually how difficult it is to have an up-close encounter. Have you ever seen a shark diving?
I've seen.
You have?
A second of a black-tip reef shark, and then it just it swam away. It was so annoying. Yeah. I was so excited, and then it just swam away. Why? I didn't even get a picture of it.
It might have been your excitement, because sharks actually have these electrosensors on their nose. Yeah. So they can really, really pick up on that, and it kind of freaks them out a little bit.
Yeah.
So basically, to come back to your question, sorry, watching this Shark Week on Discovery Channel made me realize that actually we were in quite a unique situation where we had maybe 60 to 80 guests staying in the resort.
Yeah.
Plus all of the other tourists on the island, plus the local community, the local schools. We had an opportunity where we could actually make people fall in love with sharks just by allowing people to learn about them and make up their own mind about what they thought about sharks in the end. And so we decided off the back of that to have our first Shark Week on Mabul Island. And then that just proved to be very successful. Everybody who got involved really enjoyed it. It's a very collaborative event as well. We have a lot of different organizations coming together. So it's really a celebration of the beauty of Saba's reefs, because we are blessed in Saba with some amazing marine life. And so based on the success of that first one, we just decided, well, there's other animals that people might want to learn more about. So let's do a turtle week, let's do a whale shark week. And then Marine Week, the thought behind it was, well, maybe every year we can have a different animal, rather than the same one every year. So now we've done more than 20 different events, and these events are actually done across all of the different Scuba Junkie resorts. So the resorts in Indonesia, as well as the ones in Malaysia. And so it's just a great opportunity, to bring people together and celebrate these amazing animals.
Which is your favorite week and why?
Oh, that's a tough question. Which is my favorite one? I guess probably Shark Week is my favorite one. Yeah, possibly because it's the first one, so I kind of feel a real connection with it. But also I feel that sharks are the ones that are more in need of help. Turtles obviously need protection as well, but people love turtles. You don't need to convince people to love turtles.
We're the same.
Whereas sharks are always painted as the bad guys of the sea.
Yeah.
So it's just nice to try and overcome that and make people fall in love with them.
What exactly do you do during those days?
Oh, it's more a question of what we don't do. So what we do is we have an activity that runs during the day, and then we have an activity in the evening every day for 1 week. So the daytime activities, there's a whole variety. We work with the local schools and local community organizations on the island. So we, sometimes we'll have maybe a group of 20 kids from the island from a particular group, and we'll run through a program with them in collaboration with Green Semporna, who are big partners of ours. We couldn't do a lot of the outreach work that we do without them leading on it, really. Other days we work with College Community. College Community in Semporna, they basically train their students to work in tourism. And obviously in Semporna, a lot of the tourism is marine tourism or diving tourism. So Scuba Junkie work with College Community to help provide diving training and first aid training for the students. And then at Scuba Junkie SEAS, we work with them to introduce them to marine conservation, to learn about the challenges and the threats, and help to come up with solutions. We also do in-water activities like reef cleans. We do beach cleans, we collect turtle photo IDs, we do underwater surveys in collaboration with Reef Check Malaysia. So there's a whole load of different things happening during the day. And then in the evening, we mostly have presentations. So we'll have talks by myself and other members of the team at SEAS. We'll have guest speakers. Sometimes they come from the local university or from other local NGOs. And we also then sometimes have movie nights, or documentary nights, I should say, quiz nights. And it's just about having diversity and keeping people engaged in, learning about the ocean.
As part of your community and outreach work, you help women on the island of Mabul create alternative and more eco-friendly souvenirs for tourists, like crochet keychains, for which you set up a workshop. How did you convince them to switch their way of making a living?
It's not about convincing people to change their way. It's just providing an opportunity, an option. So how this particular situation worked out is we discovered that one of the instructors working at Scuba Junkie had a hidden talent, and that talent was actually making crochet marine life. And so we asked her, would she be interested in passing on that skill to others? And she was interested. So we built up we have a lot of friends, and in fact, a lot of, I would consider them family, living in the community on Mabul. So it was really going around our network of contacts and mentioning that, look, there's this opportunity. If you want to come, it's up to you. If you don't want to come, that's okay too. And this lady will teach you how to make crochet marine life. And if you learn how to do it, we will obviously promote your products. You can come to the resort, you can sell them to the guests. And so to begin with, there were 4 ladies who were very, very interested. They did the one-day workshop, but they were basically going from, they weren't able to crochet at all. It was a skill they'd never done before. Have you ever tried crocheting yourself?
Nope, never ever
No.
tried crocheting.
Very challenging. I tried to join the workshop and I gave up actually after about half an hour. But the ladies, they were amazing. I mean, it was unbelievable how quickly they picked it up. And in that one-day workshop, they basically learned how to make a circle of one single color. And then we gave them all of the stuff they needed, so all of the thread and the crochet needles to get them started. They took that home, and within 2 weeks, they were back in the resort with crocheted hammerheads, mantas, turtles, corals, nudibranchs, octopus, seahorses, you name it. It's actually got to the point now where the guests will actually take a photo of their favorite marine life and ask, can you make this? And the very next day, the ladies come back in with an exact copy of whatever their favorite animal is. It's amazing. So yeah, it wasn't really convincing people. It was just providing an opportunity. And if people wanted to do it, then they did. And yeah, it's proven to be very successful. So those ladies, instead of collecting corals and shells and taking shark teeth and selling these things to tourists, they're now simply making these crocheted animals, and they can provide for their families without applying additional stress to the reefs. So it's kind of a win-win situation.
You also, as you mentioned, have a partnership with Green Semporna. Can you just explain what it is, what Green Semporna is?
Yeah, so Green Semporna is a group of passionate individuals, passionate youth from Semporna, who are very proud of where they're from and basically want to do their bit to protect where they're from. They're an absolutely amazing volunteer organization. Honestly, I think if there were more Green Sempornas around the world would be a much better place. So these youth, they're extremely passionate. We'll do workshops with them, as well as other organizations like, for example, WWF Malaysia, to make sure that the youth, the volunteers from Semporna, have the knowledge and skills necessary to then share that with other people from Semporna and the islands around Semporna. And it's a much more effective way of engaging people in marine conservation. You know, I can do outreach programs with, for example, international tourists and international students, but it's quite challenging for me to do outreach with a member of the local community on Mabul because I'm not from there, you know. Whereas when you have youth from Semporna, they are from there.
Yeah.
And so you have someone from there sharing their love for the ocean with others. So it's a very effective way of doing outreach. And yeah, I think Green Semporna are absolutely amazing. They're really, really good at what they're doing. They actually have a big project focusing on climate action at the minute.
Yeah.
One of the other projects that we've done in collaboration with them and WWF Malaysia was launching a community leadership program. So this is where we had representatives from, so it's youth from various island communities from all around Sabah came to join us on Mabul and learn, again, knowledge and skills about the ocean, and bringing their own knowledge and skill sets as well. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that people from the local communities know about these reefs that I don't know, you know, so that's why collaboration works really well too, because you bring all the different knowledge together, you bring all the different skills together, and then by working together, you can actually come up with solutions that actually work. So the community leadership camp took place, and then the youth went back to their communities and became the sort of ocean ambassadors for their communities.
From all of the Scuba Junkie projects going on, Which one has been most affected by the pandemic?
Well, I guess ultimately the tourism side of things,
Yeah.
ultimately our work is funded by the dive industry, and the dive industry has been massively impacted upon by COVID. So that does have a knock-on effect on our work. But with conservation, I think conservation work now is even more important than ever. So it's important that we continue the work that we're doing, and hope that the world goes back to, well, we don't really want the world to go back to normal. We actually want the world to go back to to better than normal, a better version than what it was before, where people think more about, the impacts of their actions, and more people are doing things to protect the environment rather than damage it.
Fortunately, I think more and more people are getting involved in conservation. What message would you like to pass on to younger people or anyone in general who would like to start conservation work?
The most important message would be to learn as much as you can, whether that be from your parents, from your teachers, from your friends, by reaching out to people who are working in this area, marine biologists and so on. Because the more you learn, the more you're in a better position to share that knowledge with others and actually change your actions and do positive and take positive actions to be part of the solution. So yeah, just learn as much as you possibly can. And don't get overwhelmed, I guess, thing as well. Like when you're learning, you might read some big statistics. Like a recent study estimated that there were 5 trillion pieces of plastic floating in the world's oceans. It's very easy when you think about statistics like that to think that, well, I can't do anything about that. That must be the government or the businesses. They have to do that, not me. But actually, when you consider how many people live on our planet, if every individual person makes tiny changes to their everyday lives collectively, that actually makes a huge, huge contribution. So yeah, don't get overwhelmed by the statistics and do your bit. Do make little changes and start on that journey.
Well, that's actually it. Thank you so much for joining me today, Dave. I hope you have a lovely and festive Christmas and New Year. I hope you and Kat will be able to come back safely soon to keep doing your amazing work. Stay safe. Bye. Thank you for joining me. Thank you so much. You're very inspiring.
Thanks,
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thank you for watching. Obviously, this year's celebration will be a bit different, but don't forget to stay safe and enjoy what you do have. See you in 2 weeks with a great guest I'm excited to talk with to start off the year. Bye!